Greetings from Garland, Texas. My name is Alvin Blakes, and my presentation today will be Black Families of Edgefield Plantation, the Growth of Human Capital, Labor, and Wealth in Woodville, Mississippi, 1776 to 1865. Edgefield family historian Samuel Booker Minor remembered the foundational history of the Edgefield community, all the way back to its beginnings. In an interview at his home in 1998, he told me the following. Now listen, they tell me in slavery time, this Edgefield tract of land here, this section of land, the government was letting it out to them soldiers, and this here fellow from West Baton Rouge, this Edgefield tract of land was deeded to him. It just went from family to family until Dr. Patrick came from New York and married a widow, and he came into possession of it. Well, the Percys, they come here. They was the ones brought his half-white colored family with him on an ox wagon from West Baton Rouge. The Percy that Edgefield family historians remember was Charles Percy. Charles Percy was born in 1740 in the British Isles, most likely in Ireland. After serving in the British Army, he traveled to North Carolina and then to St. Eustatius, a small Dutch island in the Caribbean near the island of St. Kitts and Nevis, and then to Pensacola, Florida by 1776. From there, he sailed into New Orleans and then likely took an ox wagon up where is now Highway 61 into Baton Rouge, past Port Hudson, St. Francisville, where he stopped, and on into Woodville, which is in Wilkinson County, Mississippi. I have compiled a list of Percy's transactions taken from the Midlow Hall database for the study of Afro-Louisiana history and genealogy. The list includes Africans he purchased as they arrived on ships from Africa or after a brief stop in the Caribbean islands. Charles Percy purchased a total of 9 enslaved Africans from New Orleans and Baton Rouge slave traders during the Spanish period, including one child newly arrived from Africa into New Orleans on a ship named San Joseph. Ship captain was Jaime Badia, which stopped on the island of Martinique, purchased from the slave trader Narcisco Alva. 4 African males, Hamlet, born around 1762, Cato, Dick, and Apollon, who were newly arrived from Africa and previously owned by Percy's Woodville neighbor Francisco Pousset, purchased from slave trader Lachlan McNeil. A family of 3, Cato, Sarah, and their son Mayer, brought from the George Prophet estate sale in Baton Rouge. A 22-year-old man named Marcos, born in 1771, purchased from slave trader Juan Mapother. A census for the Natchez district, then occupied by Spain, was taken on June 14, 1792. It listed Carlos Percy, family, household of 6 people, which included his wife and 4 minor children, 4,000 arpents of land, which is about 3,300 acres, and 22 enslaved people. 19 are listed as black and 3 as mulatto. The main cash crop encouraged by the Spanish government was indigo. The indigo plant, which is shown in the background here, was processed into a dark blue dye for dyeing cloth. It was exported for profit and sailed to Europe. Preparation of the indigo dye involved processes that attracted flies to the processing vats, poisoned the wells and streams, and spread sickness and death among the enslaved people. Indigo production and likely killed many of the early Africans on the Percy plantation, and it also poisoned the environment. By the end of the 1800s, the plantation had shifted to cotton production only. After the death of Charles Percy by suicide in 1794, and the sudden death of his wife, Susanna Collins of Natchez, in 1803, the Wilkinson County Orphans Court ordered an inventory to be taken on February 1st, 1804. By 1808, the estate was settled and divided among Percy's 4 surviving children. His oldest daughter, Sarah Percy, who was born in 1781, received a quarter of the 7,100 acres of land owned by Percy and 21 enslaved people for a total cash value of $16,189. The inventory listed the names of 21 enslaved people, clustered in family groups, their ages, and dollar value. The share of the estate given to Sarah Percy, who married John Ellis of Natchez in 1799, would eventually become the Edgefield Plantation. John Ellis died in 1808, and his estate, which includes the Sarah Percy property, would be divided equally between her and their 2 children. This would add more people to Sarah Percy's estate. John Ellis's father, Richard Ellis, lived like Charles Percy, fought on the side of the British during the American Revolutionary War. Richard Ellis and his brother John traveled from Virginia into the Natchez region and received 20,000 acres of land. Richard Ellis died in 1794 and willed his son John Ellis, who was born in 1760 in Manila, Virginia, a portion of his land and enslaved people, a total of 32 Negroes and their increase. When John Ellis married Sarah Percy in 1799, he became the legal owner of her property. After his death in 1808, the combined property, which included 159 enslaved people, went to the Adams County, Mississippi Orphans Court for division in 3 parts, 1/3 to Sarah Percy and the remaining 2/3 to their 2 minor children. I've transcribed the list of 50 souls being deemed the property of Sarah Percy. The 50 Negroes listed by family: Dick, Harriet and his wife, and Sal, Rose, Celeste, and Jane, their children. Reuben, Louisa, his wife, and Phoebe, their child. Samson, Creasy, his wife, and Nin and George, their children. Hector, Charlotte, his wife, and Gabriel and Christmas, their children. Congo and Sal, his wife, and Billy, Nancy, Jim, Richard, Ben, and Affie, children of said Sal. Elisha and Clarissa, his wife, and Davy, Daniel, Eliza, and Maria, children of said Clarissa. Nat and Molly, his wife, and Prince, Francois, Diana, Rachel, Esther, Frank, Winnie, Henry, and Polydor, their family. Joe and Rachel, his wife, and Lucy and Ann, their children. Sally and Phyllis, children of old Phoebe. Nim and George, children of Isabel. The final division of the estate was awarded on December 7, 1815. By then, Sarah Percy had already remarried to Nathaniel A. Ware, a Woodville lawyer, who moved to Woodville in around 1813. He would become the new owner of the plantation and reveal through his writings details of the life of black families enslaved on Woodville plantations. The plantation is being passed to different owners repeatedly, and each time there's a record of the black families. These are valuable records, especially because they list the names of the family groups and ages. The inventory was taken in 1819 that showed the rapid growth of the family. Nathaniel Ware, who declared himself a planter of cotton and owner of slaves, wrote a book called Notes on Political Economy as Applicable to the United States. In the book, he discussed the United States chattel slavery and plantation economy and gives a stark view of the conditions of the black enslaved families on his plantations in Woodville. And Nathaniel Ware wrote the following: "The slaves live without beds or houses worth so calling, or family cares, or luxuries, or parade, or show, have no relaxations, or whims, or frolics, or dissipations. Instead of sun to sun in their hours, or work from daylight till 9 o'clock at night. Where the free man or laborer would require $100 a year for food and clothing alone, the slave can be supported for $20 a year, and often is. A slave consumes in meat 200 pounds of bacon or pork, costing in Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Tennessee, and Western Kentucky $8. 13 bushels of Indian corn costing $2. This makes up his food. Now for salt and medicine at $1, and it runs thus: a year's food is $11. Their clothing is of cottons, 15 yards of Lowell, $1.50, 10 yards of Lindsay, $4, one blanket, $2, one pair of shoes, $1, making $7.50. Now this sum of $18.50, say $20, divided among the working days is 6 cents. Where and the Mississippi plantation slave owners constructed a life for our enslaved families so they could work 16 hours a day in the cotton fields, roughly August to December, with only enough food, clothing, shelter, and medical care to survive. Further, the goal was to strip away any sense of personhood or family cares or memory of African life before enslavement. This was the life designed by the plantation owner to maximize profit by controlling the minds and bodies of the enslaved. Nathaniel Ware sold the plantation and the enslaved families to John Connell, a plantation owner and former sheriff of Woodville. Connell had married Eliza Chin of Kentucky in 1826 and died in 1831, and Eliza Chin and her 2 children inherited the estate. Since the estate was in probate, an annual account was made by the administrator of the estate, and all proceeds and debts incurred by the estate were recorded. During that time, we get to look at the cotton produced on the plantation. In 1832, a total of 331 bales of cotton was recorded for a total of $13,864.59. In 1833, a total of 420 bales of cotton were recorded, producing $20,365 for the estate. In 1833, Eliza Chin married Dr. J.C. Patrick, who would become the last owner of the plantation before the Civil War and Emancipation. Both of Eliza Patrick's children she had with John Connell died as teenagers, and so she inherited the entire Connell estate in Woodville. Jesse Patrick, also known as Josiah Clinton Patrick, and sometimes referred to as J.C. Patrick, most times referred to as J.C. Patrick, was born in 1800 in York District, South Carolina. So my Edgefield family or historians said Patrick was from New York, but instead he appears to have been born in York County, South Carolina, or York District, South Carolina. They remembered Patrick because one of his sons, Dr. Robert Patrick, moved to Woodville and ran the plantation after his mother, Eliza, died. Robert Patrick didn't die until 1932. J.C. Patrick graduated from South Carolina College and was invited to take charge of the Minerva Academy in Edgefield District in South Carolina. His connection to Edgefield in South Carolina appears to be why he later named the Woodville plantation Edgefield. In 1828, Patrick began medical studies at Transylvania School in Kentucky. After graduating, he settled in Woodville in 1830 to practice medicine. Patrick immediately borrowed money and mortgaged a large sugarcane plantation in West Baton Rouge, and his family moved to West Baton Rouge in 1840, where he took over management of that sugarcane plantation, which already had over 100 enslaved people. Patrick became one of the largest plantation owners in both Louisiana and Mississippi, and he moved to Woodville to West Baton Rouge, but still maintained a house in Woodville. The Edgefield plantation was run by overseers while Patrick lived in West Baton Rouge. In the 1840 U.S. federal census, it lists the property of J.C. Patrick, including slaves, which were organized by category. Males under 10, 21. Males 10 to 23, 13. Males 24 to 35, 14. Males 36 to 54, 10. Females under 10, 21. Females 10 to 23, 18. Females 24 to 35, 14. Females 36 to 54, 14. Females 55 to 99, 2. For a total of 118 enslaved people. I will use these categories in the future to also count and to categorize the J.C. Patrick 1850 and 1860 enslaved persons on his slave schedule. In an inventory of the property belonging to Connell that was given to his minor heir of his son John Connell, Jesse Patrick was the guardian. In that inventory, they listed the list of slaves, January 10th, 1843. This is in the Mississippi probate records. And as you can see on this list, the following the Negro slaves. This is a sample of what the records look like. Polydor, age 27, $800. Affy, 24 years old, $600. Their child, Letty, 100 years old, $150. 5 years old, $150. Billy, 2 years old, $125. And Remsen, 1 year old, $75. So that listing in 1843 of all the enslaved people is listing them by family and giving a dollar value, a state dollar value of their value in proportion to their age. I will also use this 1843 list to record or to estimate the value of the enslaved people in 1850 and 1860, so we can chart the value of the growth of the plantation. The 1840 list, then I've charted here, of all the people involved on that list, the prices or the value that they were given. And what is clear in this indication is that the males, the maximum value they listed for males in the range between 16 and 33 years old, which is their prime working age when they were labored as on the cotton plantation, when they were laborers, $800. The females in about the same age range, 17, which was their age when they normally had their first child, to about 35 years old, their most productive years, $200 consistently, $200 less than males of the same age. And you can also see the younger children until they got to the age 17, they considered the value of them in terms of their labor lower. And as they got older, the value, production value, dropped off considerably until older people at age 70 were listed at $100. I've also listed the J.C. Patrick, Mississippi State tax records in 1852 through 1861. And it lists number of cattle over 20 heads, taxed at 1 cent each. The number of slaves under 60 years of age, taxed at 40 cents each. The county tax, the school tax, and the total tax. So in 1852, Patrick had 198 enslaved people, and he paid $79.20 tax on those people. In 1857, he had 217 under the age of 60. $86.80 was the tax on those people. In 1859, he had 235 under 60 years of age, $94. And in 1861, 233 under 60, taxed at $93.20. I've also recorded and charted after 1865, when Patrick died, and after emancipation, Eliza Patrick state taxes in 1866. She owned 3,850 acres of land. Value per acre was $4, $15,400. And of course, there's no slaves listed in 1866 after emancipation. And so there's no tax for slaves at that time. This plot shows the number of people on the estate, and is broken down by males and females, beginning with the records in 1804 when Sarah Percy received the 21 enslaved people as her inheritance, or as her division of the estate. In 1819, when John Ellis gave Sarah Percy her 1/3 of the estate. 1840, J.C. Patrick, the list of people he inherited from John Connell. And then I've added the 1850 and 1860 men and women found on the slave schedule, or males and females found on the slave schedule. And what's evident from this chart of the probate and deed records, and including in the slave schedule, is that the proportion of men and women remained fairly equal on the estate. So this was clearly by design, so they could produce, they could breed the most people on the estate as possible. That number, though, increases exponentially almost after 1840, and that's because of the number of 17 to 35 years old in the prime of their life began to multiply and create a large number of people on the estate. But that number of male and female throughout the years became stayed at really a balanced state in the prime, what would be considered their prime breeding years. Then I've taken the values that were given for people in 1843 and applied it to 1850 and 1860 slave schedule to produce a total value of the people from 1804 to 1860. And this this exponential rise here again is due to the increase in the population from 17 years old to 35 years old during that time, which also is going to be equivalent to a production of a large amount of cotton for that estate. So the estate value grows from 1864 of $6,900 to $18,375 in 1819 to $24,750 in 1843, $76,975 and $119,950,000. This is in the slaves as human capital. This is in the value of slaves alone. Now I'd like to do a profile, because we have all this data, a profile of what this meant in terms of people. Over 20 years ago, I began to assemble the history of the black families of Edgefield Plantation. The 1794 will of Charles Percy was one of the first documents I found. The list of enslaved persons on the will included Harriet, the 5-year-old daughter of Christmas and Phoebe. Harriet was born in 1789, was later married to Dick, the oldest son of Hamlet and Sal Percy. After years of finding and sorting through these lists of names and documents and trying to connect the dots, I noticed Harriet Percy, a 90-year-old female, was on the 1870 census. By 1870, the earliest black families had been in the Edgefield community for almost 100 years. Although the owners of the plantations changed every 10 years to 20 years, the families remained in the same location. After the Civil War and Emancipation, many of the Edgefield families left Woodville to find work, or they married and went to live near spouses, families, in other parts of town. The family of Hamlet was the only family that chose the name Percy. Hamlet was one of the early Africans brought by Charles Percy from Francisco Posset in 1792. Hamlet and his family may have chosen the Percy name because This was the first plantation owner he encountered in the United States. The other families had previous owners and kept the last names of owners as signposts to remember their families back in Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. None of the other families chose the Woodville plantation owners' names. Percy, Ellis, Ware, Connell, or Patrick as their last names. Instead, they chose Blake, Minor, Anderson, Plains, and Henderson's, all names that came from someplace else. So as I did the research, which is known in genealogical terms as cluster research or family history research, I call my research following Harriet. When I follow Harriet Percy's family from 1794 to 1804 during the estate, she's a 15-year-old. She's a 32-year-old during the 1819 in the John Ellis estate. She has her oldest child, Sal, named after one of her sisters, Sally. She has her first child at 17, Sal, Rose, Celeste, Jane, and Hamlet. In 1843, she's a 60-year-old. She has two younger children, Ned and Claiborne. Claiborne, 15 years old. That means she would have been born. Claiborne would have been born in about 1828. So she possibly had her last child in 1828 when she would have been almost 40 years of age. Sydney, Jimmy D, and Julianne will be children of her daughter Jane. Then on the J.C. Patrick slave schedule, there's one female in 1750 who's 70 years of age, and this likely was Harriet. In 1860, there's one female who's 80 years of age. This likely is Harriet. And then in 1870, Hamlet Percy, 60 years old, the same Hamlet Percy here who was born in 1815. Wife is Sophia. Harriet, a 90-year-old Harriet, is living with them. This is the same Harriet Percy. And then there's another daughter, Amelia, another daughter of Hamlet, Amelia. So I was able to chart not just Harriet, but the entire Edgefield plantation using this same methodology. So if I take the life of Harriet from age 5 and her value that was given to her, 200, at 15, 450, at 1819, 550. As she got older, her value went from 150 to 100 to 100. This is what we've shown throughout this presentation, that the value as a child peaks around 17 years old during the childbirth years. Her value then was said to decrease to 150 and 100 years as she got older. For my final slide, I would like to give a brief profile on the life of Harriet Percy. Harriet Percy was born in 1789 on the Edgefield Plantation in Woodville, Wilkinson County, Mississippi. She was the oldest child born to Christmas, who was born in 1739, and Phoebe, born in 1764. Her brothers and sisters were Hector, Samson, Mary Louise, Sally, and Phyllis. In around 1804, she married Dick Percy, who was born in 1779 in Woodville. Dick was the son of Hamlet Percy, born in 1744, and Sal, born in 1764. Hamlet Percy was likely captured and brought to the United States from the Igbo nation in Nigeria. On May 12, 1792, Hamlet was purchased from Francisco Pousset by Charles Percy of Woodville. Dick and Harriet's children were Sal, born 1804, Rose, born 1807, Celeste, born 1809, Jane, born 1812, Hamlet, born 1815, Ned, born 1825, Claiborne, born 1828, and Kadish. Dick Percy died around 1830 in Woodville. In 1870, Harriet lived with her son Ned and his wife Sophia. She died in Woodville between 1870 and 1880, having lived 76 years in slavery on the Edgefield Plantation. A beloved matriarch of the Edgefield community, may her name always be remembered. I am Alvin Blakes, a descendant of the Blakes family, Edgefield community, Woodville, Wilkinson County, Mississippi. My blog is almostdisappeared.com. Please feel free to visit, read my blog, share, send comments, and subscribe. Thank you.